Thank you, Janice, for inviting me. I'm very clear that it's an honor when a minister invites you to their pulpit to be with their family. So I'm grateful to be here. My talk today is "The Light Is You." I love light. I love sunlight. I love moonlight, candlelight, lights on trees, lights on homes, especially during the holiday season. I love light. But it wasn't until I was older and I got on my own spiritual path that I really discovered that I was also light. So if whenever I'm going to do a talk, I like to look up things. And so the dictionary definition of light energy is that it's a form of electromagnetic radiation. That light consists of photons, which are produced when an object's atoms heats up, and light travels in waves. It's the only form of energy visible to the human eye. So, but in theology, divine light, sometimes called divine radiance, is an aspect of the divine presence. It's specifically an unknown and mysterious ability of humans, angels, light beings to express themselves and communicate through spiritual means rather than just physical capacities. So it's also in every religion, light is present. And they utilize light, when speaking of divine presence and human life in eternity and the depth of life. And it's about life giving itself to us, to the planet through light. I have several friends who practice Diwali, which is a festival of lights that's practiced by the Hindus, the Jains, and the Sikhs, and it's like one of their most popular festivals because it symbolizes the spiritual victory of light over darkness, good over evil, and knowledge over ignorance. So Maya Angelou says, nothing can dim the light that shines from within. I just think that that is so true. Light conveys the absence of darkness, but it also helps us connect to our inner wisdom and guide us through troubled and challenging times. It can also communicate joy. A light heart is wise, and it's not held down by heavy emotions and the thought of doom and gloom. It really shows how we practice resilience. Light also brings softness and sweetness with its experience, and you can sense it and you can see it. You can walk by a stranger and without a depth of look, see the light in their face. You can see it in a newborn child. We have a newborn puppy, and that puppy, you see the light in its face, right? And you can see it how people love one another. When I work with my clients, one of the things I look for is that what lights them up. What when the light comes into their face, then that's an indication that they've connected to their passion points, to what they want to express. So light is a great connector, and it's also healing, and it also brings peace. So my husband, Carl Studna, is a world-renowned photographer, and you know, into the mid 90s, I was making my living as an actress. So I had been photographed by a lot of really well-known photographers. And we've been together 25 years. When we first met, he said, "Oh, I'd love to take your photographs," and I thought, well, that's sweet. I like the guy, so he can take my picture, right? But these pictures, I mean, I had great pictures of me, but there was something different about these. I was in awe of what I was looking at because somehow he had captured my essence the way it had never been captured before. And so I'm like, okay, I want to know what it is you did. He said, well, I have a method and it's called the Luminescence Method. And I'm like, well, what is that? And he said, it's experiential, it's step-by-step process that returns the client to their natural state of wholeness, of resting in the radiant light of their being when we fully embody the immensity of our light. We are living in an atmosphere of trust, clarity, and vital purpose. It's our natural healthy state. If you were to go on, his name is Carl Studna, if you were to go on his website, you would see the Dalai Lama, you would see Deepak Chopra, you would see all of these people, and that thing is present. Their energy, their light, right? And I'm interested in light because I think it's also a reflection of our health and our well-being, how much light we are carrying and how much light we are radiating out. So Byars Beckwith wrote this song called The Light Chant, and I've sung it for years, right? And its lyrics are really powerful. And I want to use the lyrics of the song today to kind of as a foundation of what I want to talk about. So let me just read it to you. Open your heart, let the Lord have its own way. God is the stillness deep in your center. God is the love that makes your own heart beat. God is the voice sweetly singing its glory. Open your heart, let the Lord have its own way. Be in the light, God's will is the way. Let faith be your sight, God's will is the way. Oh, we are the light, we are the way. Open your heart, let the Lord have its own way. When I sing this song, I love musicians and I am a musician, so I really honor the lyrics. But when I sing the word, let the Lord have its own way, in my being, it's like, let love have its own way. Let love permeate through every single thing. So the first line of the song is open your heart. And I just want to share, for me, that was not always easy because I came from a really abusive and challenging childhood. It did not feel safe to be in the world. But the challenge was, for me, I came on as this light, creative, expressive being. So I wanted to connect to people. I wanted to trust them, and I would keep getting disappointed. So gradually, I put a little armor around my heart because that felt like the only way I could be safe. And when I moved on the spiritual path, the concept of love, overcoming darkness and pain and suffering, kind of took root. And I started getting that love and light, are synonymous. They create synergy. When I walked into my first Science of Mind community, it was pretty astounding. A man named Daniel Morgan, who was a short Black man with all this energy, was on this stage speaking without a note, saying stuff that was like astounding to me. But the thing that he said to me is that you are the captain of your own ship. You get to light your path. You get to be who you came here to be if you awaken and change your thinking. And so that became my work. I wasn't even sure I understood it all because I came from the African Methodist Episcopal community, and I wasn't sure I could understand it all, but I was clear that there was something that was resonating with me. So I'm aware in this moment that we're in an interesting time on the planet. I mean, there's pandemic, there's political stuff, there's wars, there's division. People are struggling. And it's hard to stay in your heart and in the light when you're just trying to survive. My mother was a single mother, and survival was all it was about, and struggle was the norm. And so it was like, what do we need to do to survive? How do we need to survive? And a lot of people are in those places, right? And it's a part of the human experience, from my perception, that we want to look outside ourselves for a savior. Somebody help us, somebody rescue us. But the thing is that when that happens, it just opens the doorway for our suffering and old patterns and old beliefs to kick back in. So I'm currently working with this client, and she's been on the spiritual path for a very long time. And she came to me because she realized that she had not moved into a place of the embodiment of spiritual laws. She understood the principles, but her core beliefs and past experiences would hijack her conscious awareness. So we began working on opening her heart and allowing the beautiful love energy that lived within her to emerge. And it's been a journey, because, when you set an intention for something, when you set an intention, I'm going to shift, I'm going to awaken, I'm going to whatever, That's the good news and the interesting news. The good news is you've set the intention. The interesting news is that it brings up everything unlike itself, right? Martin Luther King says, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And Rumi says, if light is in your heart, you will find your way home. And for me, home is in the soul remembrance of who you came here to be. It's in the light that you carry. It's in how do you interact on this planet. So I love mystic teacher Howard Thurman. He's one of my favorite writings that he wrote was The Inward Journey. And I'm going to read it to you, but I'm going to ask you to close your eyes as I read it to you and just take in the words because it's really powerful. So it says, I want to be more loving in my heart. I want to be more loving. Often there are good and sufficient reasons for exercising what seems a clean, direct resentment. Again and again, I find it hard to hold in the sharp retort, the biting comeback, when it seems that someone has done violence to my self-respect and decent regard. How natural it seems to give as good as I get, to take nothing lying down, to announce to all and sundry in 1,000 ways that no one can run over me and get away with it. All this is part of the thicket in which my heart gets caught again and again. Deep within me, I want to be more loving in my heart, to glow with a warmth that will take the chill off a room, which I share with those whose lives touch mine in the traffic of my goings and comings. I want to be more loving. I want to be more loving in my heart. It is often easy to have the idea in mind, to plan to be more loving, to see it in the mind and give assent to the thought of being loving. This is crystal clear. But I want to be more loving in my heart. I must feel like loving. I must ease the tension of my heart that ejects the sharp barb, the stinging word. I want to be more loving in my heart, that with unconscious awareness and deliberate intent, I shall be a kind, a gracious human being. Thus, those who walk the path with me may find it easier to be loving, to be gracious because of the love of God, which is increasingly expressed in my living. I want to be more loving in my heart. So I'm going to invite you to breathe that in, and when you're ready, open your eyes. We are witnessing all over this planet people struggling to be loving in their hearts. We're seeing a lot of people wanting to be right. We're seeing a lot of people who got opinions and theories, some of which some of us look at and go, what are they talking about? We're witnessing where through social media, people are being unkind and sometimes violent in nature. But the thing is, I want to ask you, what if today you decided to be completely more loving in your heart? What if you decided to get real with yourself and really looked in? Where are you being loving and where are you not? Where are you being open and where are you being closed? Where are you being judgmental or where are you being compassionate? Are you loving and honoring yourself? Are you loving and honoring others, even if you don't agree with them, even if you are perplexed by what they're saying? We're watching a lot of families, in divides and political challenges because, how do we be loving and compassionate when it feels like it's so against us, right? But the thing is, are you exhibiting a heart of compassion? That's an energy, that's a light form that is transformative. Can you actually see the perfection in every experience beyond the appearances? So the question becomes how do you get there? So one of the other lines in the Light Chant song is, let faith be your sight. Ernest Holmes says, I live in the faith that there is a presence and a power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways I could not ever have imagined. I know that this presence is all knowing and all powerful and always right where I am. So faith really is like a complete confidence in something or someone that you can't see. It's easy to practice faith when everything's going well. But I say when shift hits the fan, faith can waver. So when the pandemic hit, I had numerous bookings around the world. I was to teach, to guide groups, to sacred places. I had a thriving practice. It was part virtual and part in person in my office. Within a month, in the month of March, all my engagements were canceled or postponed. New clients didn't want to come to my office because it wasn't safe. Pilgrimages were postponed, and my husband's business was doing the same thing. And so it was like all of a sudden, it was like being blindsided. And so I was like, okay, well, then what's next? So here were my words. I'm always taken care of. I know that God is my source. I trust God. But the reality was parts of me were scared. And then George Floyd happens and people are in the streets, and all of a sudden being Black in America came right up in my face and my conscious awareness. And I began to feel the fragility of being Black in America. And all these memories were flooding in, and people who were friends of mine who were not Black were calling me going, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to handle this. And I'm like, I'm having my own journey over here. I don't know how helpful I'm going to be with you because I'm in my own stuff, right? And so, but the thing is like, I had to ask myself, well, what do I really believe? And am I willing to take a deeper dive into the truth of my being? I had to ask myself, where is your faith? And so I began meditating 40 years ago. And so I know when you're in your stuff, up level your practice. do not walk away with it, go deeper. So I upped the practice. And during one of the meditations, I had this amazing vision. So I saw this portal, and the portal was open, and there was a light being there with its arms stretched out, holding the portal open. And the voice said, the portal is open. What you seed is what you will manifest. And I got really still, it was like an aha moment. It's like, okay, I got to choose what I wanted to seed and trust that the universe would support me. That meant in my life, my business, that meant what was happening with COVID. That was what was happening with politics and all the stuff going on. So one of the things I said is like, how can I be in service? Because when you're in service and you're acting from faith, something happens. So every Monday, since that time in March, I started on Facebook, this community prayer circle. So every Monday morning at 8:30, I do this prayer circle and people come in and pray. And, and a lot of people thought it was for them, but it was as much for me as it was for them, to just really continue to anchor my faith. And so I want you to tell you what happened doing that, because I was really, every time I was afraid, every time a doubt would come in, every time with fear, I was like, where's my trust? Do I trust in the divine? Do I believe what I say? Can I walk my talk? So this is what's happened since March. I negotiated out of my office and created a win-win for me and the building owner. I left with integrity, paying out a year before my lease was to be up. But it was a win-win because people were abandoning their offices, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in integrity. So he was thrilled to let me pay out to the end of September and still have the year, be wiped out the next year. I moved all of my coaching online. All of my clients came with me, and then more started coming. People I didn't know from any place, because I wasn't advertising, started coming. And so now, there's a waiting list for people to work with me. many of the talks that were scheduled online were rescheduled online. More invitations came in. This is one of them. Thank you, Janice. And then I start also getting international engagements to speak and be parts of summits. Because of the virtual world, I train coaches in my emotional integration work, and I got to train people all over the country to be a coach. The women's work that I do nationally, the conference is in January. It's virtual now, and people are signing up from all over the country, and women are wanting to know about my 2021 programs. Now, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. I'm just so in awe of what happens, because it's not what from my plans. You know, I mean, I couldn't have planned any of this. It's really from just being open and available and receptive to how spirit just outpours its goodness. So standing in an expectancy of good, you know, seeding that portal, the universe goes, oh yes, synchronicities in play, and things just start to come up. That doesn't mean I don't have moments where I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling great today. It doesn't mean that I'm like annoyed with some of the stuff I'm seeing, looking at, but it does mean I can, in that moment, shift my attention and shift my thoughts. So what I remembered is that my consciousness fuels everything. And the light of being partnered with my faith becomes a powerful manifester. And so here's the thing. I think COVID is not a fabulous thing, but I think it's a gift. We get to recreate ourselves. We get to reinvent the way we're doing. We get to become innovative. We get to become creative. We get to become more powerful in the ways in which we transmit. And, you know, people are having Zoom fatigue, but think about this. The number of people that people are being able to reach and touch has exemplified in ways we would not have imagined. People have been able to pivot their whole businesses and their whole ways of being because this happened. And so if you see the perfection in everything, can you see the perfection in the pandemic? Can you see the perfection in the craziness of the politics? Can you see the perfection in what's going on in the world where people are in the streets fighting for their rights and their light? I like to read a lot of different things, and there was a woman named Reagan Russell, and she was an animal activist. And she was really upset what was happening to pigs because they were putting them in these trucks, you know, where they weren't getting water, they weren't getting food, and they were, you know, a lot of them were hurt, and they'd been taken to these slaughterhouses and killed. So she gathered all these people, and they held up signs, 2 minutes, and she would they would all run over to the trucks, and the truck drivers would let them, and they would give water to the pigs inside. And just really send light and love to these pigs. And it was astounding. Well, they started getting noticed. And so the owners of the slaughterhouses and stuff didn't like it. And so they kind of hooked up with political people and people with money. And then they started having people protesting the protesters, right? And it was all happening in the streets. And then they put out a bill called 156. And 156 was that it became illegal for activists to do that kind of stuff for the animals, right? And it passed. And so the day that it passed, they decided that they were going to go out one last time and do the 2-minute thing for the pigs. And it was a little scary because the drivers had gotten more antagonistic and had, you know, tried to run into him a few times. It was really intense. And so they're all out there, and this is the last day, and they're doing their pig thing. And some of the trucks would just go past them. But there was this one truck that was in the street, and it was just sitting on the other side, not the turning lane, the other side. And it was just sitting there. And so they were holding up their signs, you know, because they really, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And the guy pushed on the accelerator super fast, ran across the lane, ran into Reagan and dragged her 50 feet and killed her. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because they told the police what happened. The police didn't do anything. But the media picked it up. People all over the world started holding up Reagan signs, started holding up love for the animals, peace for the animals, you know, and what her beloved who wasn't there said was that she was such a model, such an impetus to let people know that you can stand for what you believe. You can bring the light and love of your convictions to anything and make a difference. People around the world, you know, activists were standing. Now, you know, I don't think everybody has to be in the streets, and I don't think everybody has to, you know, be loud and doing whatever. But I do think it's like, what do you stand for? And are you willing to allow your light, your love, your gifts to be predominant, so predominant that it has an impact on other people? So you are the light. You are magnificent. You are an original imprint. You are so loved that spirit breathed its life into you because you were essential to be on the planet at this time. So I'm just going to say, shine your light. Let it radiate from your heart. Trust your inner guidance because it's always moving you. It's always guiding you. It's always supporting you. Activate your faith in every moment beyond any circumstance or appearance. From my point of view, you know, there's nothing more powerful than the divine. And so you can put your energy and your light there. You know, activate your faith because you are the light of God made manifest. The way I'm going to end today is I'm going to read the words from the Light Chant again, and I'm going to ask you to just kind of go in. And then David is going to play a beautiful song for us, the I Am Light, and then I'm going to do a prayer. And as you're listening to the words and as you're listening to the music, I'm going to just invite you to just take a deeper dive into understanding your light, your power, your grace, your gifts. So I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes as I read these words to you. Open your heart. Let the Lord have its own way. God is the stillness deep in your center. God is the love that makes your own heart beat. God is the voice sweetly singing its glory. Open your heart. Let the Lord have its own way. Be in the light. God's will is the way. Let faith be your sight. God's will is the way. Oh, we are the light. We are the way. Open your heart. Let the Lord have its own way. Breathe that in as you listen to this music. And so we take that into prayer, recognizing that we are light, that the infinite presence of the divine is everywhere. It is all powerful, all knowing, ever present, ever revealing, ever evolving. It is the energy and the essence of truth and power and harmony. It is my life, and it is the life of everyone hearing this prayer. It is the life of everyone on this planet. And so in this moment, I speak this word because what I know is that this message this day is an awakening, a soul remembrance of the truth of our being, that we are light, have always been light, will ever be light. We are eternal beings here to express the glory and the light of the divine in amazing, extraordinary, unexpected, and powerful ways. So in this moment, what we are doing is just opening to how do we plant the seeds of knowledge, power, grace. How do we bring our gifts to the planet? How do we allow our light to be beacons and radiating the truth of life itself? What I know is that whatever we are experiencing, whatever pain, whatever struggle, whatever challenge, you know, it is all held in the container of the divine, in the container of light and love. So in this moment, we can place those challenges, those fears, those doubts, those old paradigms, those old ways of beings on the altar of light and allow them transformed so that we are clear that this is a harmonic convergence of peace that passes all human understanding, of love that is radiating in every moment, that there is nothing opposing God, therefore there can be nothing opposing us. That everything in the universe is conspiring for our health and our well-being and our joy and our freedom. So those that are struggling in this moment, we as a collective lift them up. Those that have diagnosis, we are lifting them up. The front workers in COVID and in the hospitals, we are lifting them up. The people suffering from COVID, we are lifting them up. We are lifting up the Tucson CSL community for their ways of serving and their love and their honor and their deep desire to be a place of healing and nurturing, kindness and care. So we call forth the love that lives within us. We open our hearts. We call in being more loving in our hearts, more awake, more aware, more grounded. We are a healing salve for this planet. I know this to be true, and so I give deep and abiding thanks as I just released this word into the law, because what I know is that this word is reverberating out for anybody who happens to be having any experience. They may not hear the words, but they can feel the vibration of love. So we simply let go, trust it, and allow it to be. And I say, and so it is.